Well, welcome everybody to our second Navigators panel discussion. We're very excited to have our live audience as well as those watching the recording of this to join us today. And we're very excited to have three of our Navigators with us today. The Navigators program is a manufacturing ambassador program. And these individuals were hand-selected and nominated by their employers to participate in this program. We've gone through, I wouldn't say extensive training, but we've gone through training with all of them to help to prepare them to share their stories and to provide information to all of you and to share a little bit about what they do in the manufacturing world. So we're really excited to have Amber and Kendra and Genna with us today to share their insights and to just share a little bit about their perspective on things. So we're just going to start off real quick with a quick around the room introductions. So I'm actually going to ask my coworker, Nate Brodus, to start off and just to do a quick introduction of himself and what his role is at Catalyst. And then we're going to shift to our navigators and then spend the rest of the time chatting with the three of you.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Scott. So a big part of what I do at Catalyst is connecting with both companies and job seekers to help create new pipelines to employment and manufacturing. Whether that's working with youth that are leaving the K through 12 space and are looking to enter the workforce, or a more seasoned adult who's looking for a career change. Creating access points for jobs in manufacturing is my everyday goal.
So Nate, what are you seeing from your perspective? Is there jobs available in manufacturing? Is there a lot of jobs? Is there high demand?
Yeah, so I think that especially in the region that we're in, I mean, we're in a point where we might be entering a manufacturing job boom with a few local manufacturing companies, a few large manufacturing companies moving into the local area. So I think that hopefully over the next couple of years, we'll see a large investment in jobs, and we'll see a large growth in the region. So I think that right now, if you're a person who's trying to figure out, what do I want to do for a living? Where's the money at? Where are the jobs going to be at? If you're someone who likes working with your hands and, you're trying to figure out a way that you can put that to good use, making good money, or, I think that there's a lot of different ways that you can get involved in manufacturing. And if you're one of those folks, then I encourage you to head to our makingyourfuture.org website, our career counseling section. You'll find my beautiful face on there somewhere. Whenever you see that, that you've arrived, fill out the form, and then, we'll go from there.
I feel like we have to change the website now, put Nate's face right on the front page so they know they came to the right place.
Right.
Traffic will skyrocket if we do that too, I'm sure. So let's just go around the room quick. I'm going to go alphabetical on this first one. Amber, you're up first. Just tell us full name and where you work and what you do there at the company.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Amber Nolf. I work for SMS Group. So my title at SMS Group is Corporate Development Specialist. One of the main things I do is work with our plants specifically and do a bunch of stuff with them. So I work with their strategic plans, which means that I'm helping them look at an outlook for how they can grow as a plant. And I also do industrial engineering there. So I help them with their processes and efficiencies and try to help them find areas that they could cut time or costs or help workers, not bend so much. So just trying to help the plant succeed.
Awesome. Genna?
Hello, my name is Genna Mucci. I am an operations coordinator at Tudi Mechanical Systems. We're a mechanical contractor, which means we do HVAC, plumbing, electrical, and I manage three of our departments, the operations day to day, our technicians in the field. I kind of manage what they are doing every day. I manage the projects that are coming in and out, and just basically make sure that everything runs smoothly on a daily basis.
Awesome. Thank you. Kendra?
Hi, I'm Kendra Slis. I work at Mecco Marketing and Traceability, and I'm an inside sales engineer there. So Mecco works with lasers and pin marking systems to work on traceability and marking on a lot of products that you use every day. So my responsibility is to kind of manage the products as they come in and help the customers to find out what the right fit is for their application so that they can implement that system. I also work on recruiting new businesses with similar interests to help them to see where we could help them out and improve on efficiency and capabilities as well.
We're going to come back to skills needed, but communication skills for a salesperson, I would think, are incredibly vital, and you just demonstrated that. So we'll come back to that question. Be thinking about that in the back of your mind. Amber, we're going to come back to you real quick. Just tell us a little bit more about the company. Maybe tell us a little bit more about some of the end product that you guys do and create there, and maybe a little bit more about your role there.
Yeah, so SMS Group is a global company. I am currently at our corporate headquarters in Pittsburgh, but we are based out of Germany. So we develop machinery that will help end goal create steel products. So it can be anywhere from working with the steel directly being poured, that's a molten metal being poured and creating what we call slabs of metal, which is really just thick sheets of metal, to anything that could go into a car or go into any everyday household product. So we mainly work with steel and other products related to steel to help make things that we use every day. So like I said, a car is a good example. And what SMS actually does is we either build or repair the machinery that will go into creating these products. So the workshops have the machinery that we are either building or repairing, and that is where I come in and look at their process overall. So I will follow a process fully and try to help them find an area that they can either knock off some time or cut some costs and overall just help them. So if we can cut time, we'll be able to put more things through the shop and repair more items. And if we can reduce costs, then, that just helps the company overall. And we're able to help the customer out. So really, I'm just there to evaluate and help. And I love working with everybody on the floor. I love to go and be hands-on. So it's a really great opportunity for me.
When you say evaluate and help, just to clarify, is that, with SMS and your facility specifically, or with clients, or with both?
That is mainly with SMS for right now. So I will go in and work specifically with our workers on the shop floor, talk to them, look at our products that we have, or our processes that we have, either just on the floor that people do or written down, and we have steps dedicated to certain items. So I work directly with SMS for now, but who knows what the future will hold.
I think it's one of the neat things about a lot of the companies here in Pittsburgh is that even though they're Pittsburgh companies or in southwestern Pennsylvania, a lot of internationally owned companies, a lot of companies with multiple locations in multiple states and multiple countries. And especially we have a lot of German-owned companies here too.
Yep.
And that's why we have a very strong German-American Chamber of Commerce too, that engages with those companies, because we just have so many German manufacturers here. So Kendra, tell us a little bit more about Mecco and a little bit about the end use of the product you make, but then the use of that product too.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned before, Mecco marketing and traceability. So we primarily work with laser and pin marking systems. So if you're not familiar with the pin marking system, it's just like a little it's basically what it is. It's a marking with a pin. So a lot of dot pin things. Think of QR codes or 2D barcodes and like serial numbers on things. So we do that with the lasers as well. So we help companies to maintain an eye on the products that they're going throughout their cycle, whether it be through the production cycle or after the fact once they're sold out to the consumer. So if you've ever had a part recall on your vehicle and you had to go in, chances are that there is something marked and traced on there to know that, hey, this is part of the recall. So we work with customers to help that and ensure that they're getting the right things. They're not losing money on things, that people aren't trying to scam them for bringing in products that aren't recalled. We also do like everyday things like If you've ever looked at on a cough syrup bottle, the metal, the plastic cup has little markings on it. That can be marked with things like our lasers. So there's also some visual and like product marking things that we do as well.
So you guys are not necessarily doing all of that marking of stuff in-house, but you're making the machines that you're turning around and selling to the companies that are doing that marking, right?
Correct. Yeah. So in my part, I hear a lot about, I learn about the application that they're going to use the end product for, and then try to figure out the best solution, because we do have two main products such as pin marking and lasers, but there's lots of different iterations. Different lasers mark on different materials. Different pin markings have different requirements such as depth and readability and size. So we help to figure that out on the front end, but yeah, we actually sell the products to the customers so they can implement it and integrate it into their systems.
So as a sales engineer, I know that's usually a blend of someone that has that business and sales background, but also has a technical leaning to their background too. I guess my first question is that accurate in what a sales engineer is? And then also, like, I would imagine with just the variety of product lines and the potential applications, it was probably a lot to learn to get up to speed in that job.
Yeah, absolutely. I will agree that it is a great combination of technical and communication skills. And I will say I'm still learning. I'm learning every day on new products as we get opportunities to come in, as I go and outreach and search for them. So my background is in engineering. I have a technical background in biomedical engineering in my undergrad and engineering management as my master's program. So I have the technical understanding on how the things work. But actually prior to this job, I worked in like business development and with a nonprofit organization where I talked with a lot of companies. And then when I came to Mecco, it was kind of a perfect blend of both things. I had the experience of communication with talking with a lot of different people, and then also the technical understanding from my background in education and engineering to understand how they work so I can answer those technical questions when I'm talking to groups of people. Every day is different. I could be working with an auto company at 10, and then at 3 o'clock I could have a medical company call. It really depends on the day. So it's really cool to be able to switch and wear different hats and do that day in and day out. It keeps it interesting for sure.
Genna, Tudi's a little bit different in the mix of companies that we have involved in our Navigators program this year. A lot of the companies and what Amber and Kendra were talking about were kind of a more traditional manufacturing kind of space, but you know, Tudi's been a great client of ours, and we've helped Tudi in a lot of different ways with our manufacturing knowledge to help you improve. But maybe just tell the students a little bit more about what Tudi does, and you know, are you guys in commercial or are you in residential? But also, like, you know, some of the things you've seen and the connecting points to manufacturing, you know, not in kind of your approach to things, but also you guys work with a lot of manufacturers too, if I recall right.
Yeah, so like I mentioned before, we're a mechanical contractor, which means we do plumbing, heating and air conditioning, electrical, and we do that both on the commercial and the residential side. I only work in the commercial side, so I don't really get into the residential side quite as much, but what that means is basically if you're in a building like this, if you're in a building like your school, everything around you is what we do. The building right behind you, Scott, whether it's the lights, the heating and the air conditioning, the water, the gas, all of that, we install all of that. So whether that's a brand new building or an existing building, our sales engineers come together and kind of produce a solution for the customer, whether that's energy savings, for comfort, for processes. For a lot of manufacturers, I'm sure you guys know that whether that's piping for gas, for water, the air conditioning for the processes, that's very crucial. So we actually work with a lot of manufacturers to make sure that that is on point for them.
So I actually had a question for all three of you. I was just wondering if there was anything that was specific to, you know, your interests or your personalities that kind of led you to the careers that you're in currently, or at least, you know, maybe things that help you be successful where you're at.
I would say, I'll go ahead and speak on that one. Not necessarily, I was kind of, I don't want to say forced into this, but I grew up around my dad working in the same industry. So I was around it since I was 5 years old, and I kind of grew up with it and became comfortable with it. Not necessarily that I had an interest in it. It wasn't, I never really sought out, this is exactly what I was going to do, but this is kind of where my path led me. And I think that like growing up around my dad, seeing all of that I think that really helped me where I am today.
Yeah, I can jump in and just go off of also family bringing me into this. My grandfather is actually a carpenter, and growing up, he was remodeling our house or his house, and I was right by his side since I was like months old. We have a picture of me with a spoon, and there's some plaster on it, and I'm plastering the wall with him. So I think just growing up in an environment where he was always telling me how to do certain things like measuring and cutting and putting things together. And I was always working with my hands, that I think once I got into school, like the measuring and cutting and numbers kind of went into the math and science side of schooling. And I think I just really picked up on it and enjoyed doing it because I could then take it back home and work with my grandpa more. So I think just being able to work with my hands, and I really like numbers. So I think that's kind of what pushed me into this field a little bit.
Yeah, so I consider myself to be a helper by nature. I really like to help people in whatever form I can. So typically people, when you're younger, people say, oh, you should go into like nursing or healthcare or something like that, because that's something you can help every day. I wasn't really into that. I was like, I'm not really sure if I want to be doing that day in and day out, but I also realized I really like problem solving. So that's kind of what put me to engineering, because I was able to learn how to be a problem solver with my engineering degree. And then as I went in there, I realized that, hey, like helpers doesn't have to be limited to one particular industry. I'm helping people every day with what I do in problem solving, and everyone else on this call is as well. It's just in a different form, and it's not as visible, but it's still really important to what we do in day-to-day life. And I've been able to see that in my position. I'm sure Amber and Genna see that as well, that it's all important, and we're doing things to work towards building a bigger future for all of us and contributing to it in some sustainable way.
So I want to come back to Genna. Those were all fantastic answers, by the way, and I think it's really great insight to, thinking about how students get exposed to careers. There's about a million questions I think I could ask as follow-ups to everything you guys just said. Genna, we have a lot of students that may be watching this today that are thinking about the skilled trades, and HVAC is certainly an area that I know a lot of schools in the area have programs around. There's a lot of student interest in those fields. And it seems like it's a really viable career option for a lot of students. Do you see that through through your role? Is Tudi a company that's regularly hiring for HVAC techs? Any insights you can provide on those careers would be great.
Yeah, actually right now, as we speak, the trades are looking for people across the board, not just our company, across the state. It's actually very hard to find technical workers now, whether that's HVAC, electrical, plumbing. We're having a hard time, honestly, to find people. So actually we have gone into some schools, whether that be like a community college or some of the VOTECs, which you can go to in high school. We've gone into some of those places and talked to those kids. And we bring in a lot of young kids, like sometimes out of high school, sometimes out of college, and try to train them as best we can alongside them going into school. But we try to train them with our guys so they get that actual hands-on technical experience.
Amber, I don't know if you have any insights from SMS. Are you guys hiring? is it challenging in finding folks? What are the types of folks that typically are getting hired at SMS even?
Yeah, so just to go off of Genna, we're doing pretty much the same thing. Community colleges, VOTECs, career fairs, anything like that. But we are looking for people. We really do need people, especially a good example is we need people who are able to program machinery so that we can actually work on pieces and repair them. So we need people like that on our floor. We just need people that are really interested in working with their hands and fixing things. And just like Genna said, we're looking at all the same locations. We have the kind of same attitude. So we are looking, but with everything that has happened, it was hard, but right now I'm sure that everybody is available and looking for people to fill some positions.
I can't, of course, ignore the fact that our panel today is made up of three awesome young women that are in the manufacturing space. And, overall, I think there's probably underrepresentation of females in the manufacturing world. Do you see that? I'm gonna throw this to Amber first. Do you see that at SMS? And as a female working in manufacturing, does that create greater opportunities? Should other young women be considering manufacturing? Any thoughts on that?
I mean, I definitely think if you are interested in this field, don't back away because you're intimidated. I know in general, like you said, representation of females is a little low in the manufacturing field. But at SMS, actually, there's a good mix. Actually, in my group specifically, in the operations group, we have total of 3 girls with us. And the group is probably only 7 or 8 large. So we actually make up about half of our group. And when you go into the plants themselves, there are women working there. So I think SMS does a really good job. I think we have a good mix of males and females. But yeah, if you're interested in this type of field, I definitely suggest it. I love it. I've been in the field for probably about 4 years now, starting back in my junior year of college. So I think it's something that if you would like to step into it, to definitely try it out.
I'm so glad you said that, Amber, because I think that we do see some challenges in engaging young women in manufacturing careers, but I do think what you said is also true, is that in certain places that you go, you'll walk into certain places and you'll see a representative amount of women in there doing awesome jobs. So I think that that's a great point to make. And that's all. Maybe there's some lessons to take from that, and that maybe there's some space for us to figure out how we can expose other young women to the fact that there are women in these fields doing great stuff.
Hence our panel today. Kendra, gonna throw it to you. Even reflecting back to your time in school, and do you see a lot of female representation in your program of study? And then what about your perspective on the females working in manufacturing?
Yeah, so with my undergrad being in biomedical engineering, a lot of our class, my graduating class, was primarily female. I did have a large variety of that. And I think that it might have been unique to biomedical. That was the one that probably had the largest female population. But in my graduate program, it was still about half and half, I would say, with males and females as far as that spread. And in my current position, on our small team that I directly work with every day, there's 3 of us and 2 of us are female. So we actually have the majority in that point, but expanding out in Mecco, and we're pretty small. I would say it's about a third of us are female. And I always encourage girls to say that, hey, like, your voice and your opinion matter, just because if you don't see yourself there, it's okay to make your voice heard so that you can encourage and contribute to the conversation, because the biggest thing is that everyone brings their own perspectives to that. So the more unique voices that we get at the table, the better we can help others, and the better we can learn about what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, and try to make it more inclusive for everybody to benefit them. So.
Genna, I think that Kendra just made a great point as far as the different perspective that diversity brings to our organization in general, but also that a female brings into some of these roles, and even just some of the fine motor skills. Guys are big clunky hands. We have a lot of manufacturers that are like, we love hiring females to do wire assemblies and stuff, because just the attention to detail, and maybe just physically it just works out better. Or I'm just wondering if you have any perspectives on that, or just in general, when you look at the Tudi in general, but also in your world in the skilled trades, but also related to the HVAC mechanical space that you're in. Any perspectives?
Well, I would say on my side, the operations side, we're probably made up, I'd say maybe 75% is male, 25% female. However, in the field, which I don't think this is just a Tudi, just here at Tudi, I think this is kind of across the board, is most of the technicians are male. I'll say I've been here for almost 6 years, and I've only ever seen 1 or 2 female technicians, which actually weren't even here. They were at different companies. So I would say if that's something that you're interested in, absolutely don't let that stop you. If you have an interest in that, a piece of advice is just be confident. If that's what you want to do, then just go for it.
There's good money to be made as a technician too, right?
There is.
We always jokingly say that nobody wants to either encourage their kids, or maybe even students aren't thinking of things like being a plumber or being an electrician, But go ask your parents how much those individuals make, especially when it's a holiday or if it's on a weekend or when it's like vitally important that they need that person because your bathroom is overflowing or something like that. And then ask them how much they're paying when they're paying, double time and triple time and emergency costs and things like that. And you'll quickly change your tune maybe about some of these careers.
Right. Hey, I'll tell you. So I work with job seekers, people who are looking for jobs and, are underemployed. And I had a guy who I helped get an entry level plumbing job. And he comes back to me and he had to report to me like how much money he was gonna be making. And when he told me, it was more than twice what I was making at the time. And I'm like, oh, okay. So like maybe plumbing is probably the direction where I should have been looking at, back in high school. But I think that, the fact is that, even he didn't necessarily know that there would be that sort of opportunity there. And, exposing as many people to that, whether they're, young men, young women, the fact is that everybody who has the ability deserves a chance at those. So yeah, that's awesome.
Genna, let's transition a little bit into some of the skills to succeed. And what do you see? I guess since we're talking about some of the folks that are in the field and that you work with, maybe start there and some of the skills you think it takes to be successful in those careers, but then also kind of transition it to yourself, in a role like that you have there at Tudi. What are some of the skill sets that you think are important to succeed in that type of career?
I think one of the biggest things that I've learned just in my time here, and I'm sure that Amber and Kendra can agree, communication is the biggest skill that you can learn. And I and everyone else, I'm sure, is still working on it. But I think that's for sure the biggest thing you can learn and work on. Whenever I was in college, maybe I didn't have the best communication skills, and I was learning that. And once I got here, I was forced to learn how to communicate. I had to call customers and vendors on the phone. I had to figure out how to relay what I was thinking to other people, which maybe I didn't have the opportunity to do that every day when I was in college or in school. But that's something that I think I've really learned working in the workforce.
I think we had a similar discussion with some folks from Duquesne Light who said, even the folks that are out in the field that think, oh, I'll just go out and put my head down and work in a closet or work in a small space and be away from people. But they're the front line of representing the company, and their attitudes and their personalities and their communication skills and how effectively they listen and communicate to those customers is not only to get their job done, but also just to represent the company.
Right. And even on my side, it's kind of a long chain of communication, because that technician is communicating to the customer, but that technician is also communicating back to me, who I'm communicating to the people above me, to vendors, to kind of all over the place that you got to communicate.
Kendra, we mentioned about communication earlier in our conversation, and I said I was going to come back to you on it, so it makes sense for me to come to you next, especially in the world of sales. And I would imagine listening is critical, but can you talk about communication in general?
Yeah, absolutely. I was even going to add on to the thing to talk about the females before. I just realized that even a perspective, I talk with a lot of companies, and I'd say about half of them are females that are just directly corresponding with me and other manufacturing companies. That was one thing I wanted to add on there. So a wider perspective, but yeah, listening and communication. As part of my job, we usually have an initial discovery call just to learn a little bit more about what they're looking to do. And it's a lot of listening on my part and a lot of taking notes, because they have something in mind. And sometimes it's as simple as they're calling our dot peen, our laser system, something completely different than we refer to it as. So it's taking the time to sit down and listen to understand, get a better picture of what they're looking at on that end, and to also not be afraid to ask the questions if you don't understand what they're doing, because if you ask those early on and are open to those, people aren't going to yell at you if you don't understand. They would much rather you ask the questions to clarify and understand what it is than to get off the phone and be like, okay, what did they say? I have no idea. So being open and doing that. I know that sometimes communication students, whenever you think about it in high school in the traditional sense, you think of like writing essays or reading books or everything like that. But it's more so just personal communications, talking to people and not being afraid to ask those questions or to say clearly what you mean so that there's no misunderstanding is more so one of the big things in my job. And then I'm communicating that to the team that's going to actually build a laser and then test the samples and go through there. Like Genna said, like it's communicating down a whole line of chain of command.
So obviously we've just focused on communication, Genna, but is there any other skills that you think are vitally important outside of communication that you wanted to share?
I do. I think another skill that isn't specific to my trade is critical thinking. There's going to be a lot of problems that you're going to have to solve in your career, no matter what field you go into, and kind of critically thinking about all of the things that go into that and how you can solve that problem. I think that'll help you no matter where you go in life.
Amber, what are your thoughts on skills for success, skills to succeed in your role specifically? And if you want to add anything in on communication, of course.
Yeah, so going off of communication, I do communicate with, we have almost 20 locations in the US, so I do contact every one of those locations, and it's not always in person. So I do have to get as much information as I can over the phone to understand everything that they've said. Like Kendra said, I need to ask as many questions as I can because sometimes I'm not able to walk on the floor and see things for myself. And going off of what Genna said about the critical thinking, I think something to piggyback off of that is the ability to adapt quickly. Because when you're thinking critically, you might run into a problem and you have to be able to adapt to that situation and either think in a different way, or maybe you have to go grab a different tool or a different piece of paper that has information on it. So I think being able to adapt quickly has really been something that I worked on and am still currently working on, just because the ability to do that will help you solve problems. And like Genna said, the critical thinking, it would just help that all around.
Kendra, is there anything else you want to add? I mean, we talked a lot about communication skills when we were talking to you about this topic, but is there any other skills that you think are necessary to succeed?
Yeah, kind of just jumping off of Amber, one of the things that I always try to remind myself and encourage others around me is to remember that the way we've always done things isn't the way we always should do it moving forward. So always be willing and able to change things. Just because something might not work right now doesn't mean that we can't figure out another solution. And I think this past year and a half has taught us all that really important and different skills. For example, myself, I mentioned earlier that I was I'm looking at also doing some outreach to companies so that they're not currently coming to us to see if we can procure new business developments with them as well. And I started using this tool. It's called Vidyard. So it's like video emailing, and I've never heard of it before. And someone suggested it to me, and I was like, oh, this is really strange. I've never done this before. I'm not sure what to think about it. What are people going to think about this? So, and then I gave it a try last week. I sent out about 10 of them and got about half responses back. So pretty good to try something new. And that's something that I'm sure Genna and Amber noticed, that there's things that are constantly changing, even though we're pretty fresh in our career, pretty new, that things are changing constantly. So always being willing and open to change and try new things. They might not work to begin with, but you might have success in it as well. So I think that's a really important skill, is to always keep learning and always be willing to keep learning. Just because you're in a career doesn't mean that you're set, all right, good until retirement. There's always going to be new things to learn. And I think that'll really prove success for everybody that follows that advice.
So I'm wondering, Kendra, when you came out of high school and were heading to college, was manufacturing where you expected yourself to be? And, I guess, has your perception of manufacturing changed?
Yeah, so I definitely did not picture myself in manufacturing whenever I graduated high school. I knew I was going into engineering, but going into biomedical, I pictured myself more in research and development and things like that. But doing some research in college, I did research about 4 years on medical products and things, and I really liked it, but it can get a little bit tedious sometimes because you can be doing research for 4 years and not see any results. So that sometimes can get a little tedious, but it's not a bad thing that I realized, oh, this might not be the right thing for me. I might want to I want to see things happening and changing and seeing my impact almost in real time for certain things. So that was kind of what shifted me to manufacturing a little bit. I mentioned before, I didn't go directly into manufacturing after graduation, but going into it, I did have, I think a lot of people sometimes have stigmas of it being old and like something that's kind of outdated, that I'm like, oh, I just think of like old machinery or like old buildings and warehouses that you pass by. But I've learned in this past like year and a half in this position that it is not that it's definitely changing, and it's actually at the forefront of technology versus being in the past. So that was something that I really didn't know, but I've learned very quickly about manufacturing.
Amber, I would imagine you see that a lot too. I mean, SMS probably has some pretty old facilities, and even some of the other customers you guys work with probably have some what individuals would probably think of as a traditional manufacturing, kind of environment. But I would imagine even within those spaces, or just in general, as progressive as SMS is, that you guys are probably making some radical technological advancements, and it's probably a lot different than what you perceived and others perceive. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so just to go off of what Kendra said, I was in the same boat. I went in, knew I wanted to be an engineer, but did not think that manufacturing was going to be the route, just because I thought it was old, and I didn't really know what was in it total. So yeah, we do have some old facilities, but the facilities actually are pretty clean compared to if you compare it to a long time ago, it's a total change. It's totally different. You can walk through, and my boots in some of these places don't even get dirty. They look the same as when I walked right in. So yeah, there's been a ton of changes. And even though SMS might have an old building, they definitely don't have old work in the building. We have updated. There's always advances going on, technological advances. Everything's constantly growing. There's always new ideas. Just because we might have an old facility, if you step inside, there is a lot of new equipment that you might not expect to be in one of these buildings. So it's kind of like, don't judge a book by the cover sort of thing. It might look old on the outside, but you go in, and it's a completely different story.
Kind of like our building, here in Hazelwood. This is
Yeah.
where our office is located. And I think some of you have been here for training before we had to close it down for COVID. But you look at this is a 100-year-old J&L Steel facility, and now it's got solar panels on the roof, and there's an autonomous vehicle company in there, and there's a robotics research facility in there, and the coolest office in the world, ours, is in there. Well, maybe not, but yeah. I think it's really interesting that don't judge a book by its cover, or don't think about when so many students, and probably even more so adults, when you think of manufacturing, they think of that old vision of manufacturing for sure. Amber, are you guys using any robotics?
Yeah, we do have some robotics in some of the facilities, and that's kind of where the programming comes in. We need people to be able to work with the robots and understand them and fix them if something were to happen. It's definitely becoming something that we need to spread out more in the facilities, but I do know a few have some robotics within it. So we are looking at that becoming a bigger thing for SMS.
Genna, I want to kind of stay on this topic of technology for a minute with you. I would imagine that, and again, I know you haven't been in the industry for a lot of years, but even through your exposure with your dad's background, man, the industry for HVAC has probably changed radically when it comes to technologies, and it seems like it's constantly evolving. And then to piggyback off of that, maybe even touch on a little bit about, I would imagine that young folks have an advantage when it comes to that because of their tech savviness and their, adaptability to the latest, greatest app or their newest piece of technology that drops. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, kind of along the same lines, technology in the HVAC industry has completely changed in the past 20 or so years. A lot of the residential air conditioners, now you can go up to it and there's a QR code on the outside of it that you can put your phone up to. A lot of the equipment is kind of the same thing Amber said, like people need to program it. It's not necessarily changing nuts and bolts now, it's programming a computer inside of the equipment. So a lot of that kind of goes hand in hand with any sort of trade. The technology aspect goes hand in hand with that.
So we talk a lot here at Catalyst about Industry 4.0, these emerging technologies that are radically changing manufacturing, but also just every industry sector. And we touched on robotics and automation as one of those things. But I'm just wondering if the term Internet of Things, is that something that's coming up are you hearing that terminology in your world, Genna?
Yeah, I have heard that quite a few times here in the office.
So for those that don't know, Internet of Things is basically this idea of constantly connected devices, data collecting devices, smart technologies. You know, I just think of the all of these smart thermometers and thermostats and stuff like that are now in homes, and they can control everything from your phones and get notifications from your phones, or, you know, coming home from vacation, cool the house or warm the house before you get there. And I would imagine a lot of just even the data reporting back to your repair technicians is probably in some cases a constant flow of data that you can be analyzed. Is that accurate? Or
It is, and we actually do, one of the departments I work in is the controls department, which is basically building automation. So you have a thermostat on your wall, it automates the equipment that's in your house or in your building. So a lot of our work is done remotely. A customer will call in and say, hey, well, why is it 80 degrees on this floor? And one of our guys will log onto the computer and actually just be able to change things right there. We have equipment that you can just basically drop off at a customer site, plug into the wall, and it'll gather every sort of piece of information that you need, whether it's how many kilowatts they've used, how much energy they're using, CO2 levels, all of that within just plugging something right into the wall. So it's pretty crazy what you can do without a lot.
I'm always amazed too, just seeing a lot of technicians in the field, and the first thing they grab is an iPad now versus a screwdriver or whatever else, right? Kendra, obviously, I know Mecco is constantly on the cutting edge of technologies, but having gone from the original kind of dot peen, kind of process to lasers, and but anything you want to touch on as far as technology and advancements, and I'm curious, are you guys doing anything with 3D printing?
Yeah, so as far as like technology goes, kind of how Jenna mentioned that the technicians can easily diagnose a problem remotely or just plugging into a system. We also have that available with our lasers as well with our service team. So all of our lasers and our systems are modular, meaning that they're really easy to go in and replace a component that it's just like a 1-2 step. We can send something out overnight, but our technicians can also log into it remotely, run a diagnostic and say, okay, this is the issue, this is the part you need, we'll send it out. By a simple code. So it's a lot easier to do that than you don't have to be a laser expert. We always tell them that's our job. So we'll make sure that we're able to help you understand that. But yeah, we're working with some as far as like 3D printing for even like fixturing, looking into that. Mecco has a great partnership with RMU. So like doing some laser welding as well. Looking into that, it's a very new thing that's been the past couple of years, looking into that as far as technology, and even cutting edge of technology as far as our laser systems and how we're able to build the actual enclosure and try to value engineer design it to make sure that it's something that it's giving the customer the highest product they need, but also we're able to easily do it and do it quicker and efficiently. So.
I'm curious, Amber, maybe this is maybe a no, but as we're talking about technologies, one of the things that just popped in my head is about, green and efficiency and being a little bit more environmentally friendly. Is there anything happening at SMS in regards to, energy savings, energy costs, or even just this idea of being a more green type of manufacturing company?
Yeah, I unfortunately don't have many specifics about this, but I do know just in general in the manufacturing field, and I feel like a lot of places are taking suit and following this, is that we are trying to become a more green manufacturing industry, just because of, for example, emissions or things leaking into a river. So I do work with our safety specialists a lot. And that is actually one thing that we make sure that we look into, is kind of like the green aspect of it, making sure that we are trying to stay as environmentally friendly as possible. And we are always looking for areas to become better at that. So I wish I could give more details on it. Unfortunately, I don't have many, but I do know that we are looking to, we are making strides already, but this is a continuous thing. Everybody's always trying to get better.
Yeah, I know we have a lot of companies that are thinking about or have put some serious strategies into place, or even just the big announcement this week with US Steel, looking to become more carbon neutral and shift their processes and their future build out plans as a result of some of those goals. Genna, I would imagine in your world, especially energy efficiency is probably the biggest factor, but Also, I imagine just in this crazy world of COVID, the upgrades to ventilation systems and upgrades to the quality of those systems and the quality of our air and filtering stuff out. Man, that industry has to be booming because of those things right now.
Actually, over the past year and a half since COVID started, we were able to stay open because of those things, whether that was UV lights or hands-free fixtures. We've began selling a lot of, they're called eye waves, which emit ions into the air, which kills all the bacteria, coronavirus as well. So that's helped us get through the past year or so. And I don't really see that slowing down anytime soon.
So I think, when we think of motivators for students, a lot of students want to work with technology. They want to make a difference in the world. They want to make an impact on the environment, or, they, in this case, making a difference in the world through making our air cleaner, or our worlds and our work environment safer. So I appreciate you touching on that. We're coming up on an hour here, so we want to be mindful of time, not only for the three of you, but also for those that are watching. The extent to which they can sit in front of a screen is probably shrinking by the minute these days, as we've sat in front of screens nonstop for the last year. But what do you see as the future of manufacturing? Do you see a long-term career for you in manufacturing? Do you see a bright future in this space? Is there a room for growth and upward mobility? I'm sorry, I'm going to throw it to Amber. Same question. I'll edit that out in the post, by the way.
So I do see myself in manufacturing. I really enjoy the work I do. I think with the industry, how it is right now, we are consistently coming up with new ideas, and there's new work, and everything is just continuously advancing. And with something that's continuously advancing, we need people that are going to be able to keep up to speed with that and build off of the new ideas. So I love problem solving. I love working with other people. And I think in an industry like this, where you need a lot of communication, you work with a lot of people, and you get to give ideas and build off of other people's ideas and hopefully make a difference in the world, I really think that this is going to be the place for me, is in the manufacturing field.
Genna, what about you? Do you see a lot of upward career mobility and long-term career options available in the field you're currently in? Or
I do. I agree with what Amber said. I mean, look at the changes that have happened from 20 years ago to today. I mean, imagine what's going to happen 20 years from now. So I don't see myself going anywhere. I think this is a great career opportunity for anybody.
Hello. So I have a question just as we begin to wrap up. So if I'm a young person who's interested in applying for a job at one of your companies, what should my next step be?
So I'll just start this off. You can go to the SMS site, which is SMS, let me just double check. It's SMS-group. Group. Maybe sms-group.com. I can actually put it in is there a way to put it in the chat for you to send out?
Yeah, and we in the post we can put it up. We'll put it up on the screen. So
okay, well I can send you the direct link to get to a place, but that will give you a screen where all of our opportunities are. It will give you job descriptions, and you can always contact Scott if you have any direct questions. You can contact me about it, and I can try to answer as best I can, or give you somebody that you can directly talk to ask questions to.
Genna, what about you guys?
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, kind of the same thing. If you, Scott, I can give you the website as well, but if you go to our website, tudi.com, TUDI, all of our career opportunities are posted there. You can read a lot about our company, watch videos about exactly what we do, and kind of just get familiar with it. And I would recommend that for any company that you're interested in. Go on their website and look around and kind of see what they're all about.
Kendra, we're asking about, Nate had asked about how to find out about career opportunities at Mecco. So
Can you guys hear me now? I
Yep,
joined on my phone. Okay,
Yep,
I don't know what happened. So,
that's good.
yeah, so you can check out career opportunities at Mecco on our website. I also highly recommend checking out our YouTube channel. So it's really cool to see like all the different products that we can actually mark on. So it's a great way to understand. I know that for my understand like what we actually do, because it can be very broad, but sometimes video or pictures worth 1,000 words. It's funny. I noticed that as I got into more of the manufacturing space and I work with these companies, I notice there are things out every day, which is just kind of reinforcing about how big of a part manufacturing is in our day-to-day lives. Genna, I was at my brother's hockey game a couple weeks ago, and I looked up and I'm like, oh, there's our big Tudi HVAC systems. I was like, oh, my friend Genna works there. That's so crazy. Like noticing those things. I've been to this arena thousands of times and never noticed it, but now I do. So I think it just kind of speaks to the awareness and how important it is to learn about these fields, even if it's just recognizing a name somewhere. It helps to get a better understanding of what it is that manufacturing is. But yeah, mecco.com, and then our YouTube channel as well.
Kendra, I'll give you a chance to answer the question I had asked before too. Do you see a future for you in manufacturing?
Yeah, I definitely do. Like I said, technology is constantly evolving, and it's really exciting to be at the forefront of it. And I think that it's cool to see the ability to enact some of the ideas that I have and problem solve and do those things day to day, because as the world's changing with, we mentioned green and environmental things, I'm sure there's going to be new challenges that come up and new technology in general. I know like robotics and 3D printing are super new, still relatively new in the grand scheme of things. So I'm excited to be working with them right now, and also to see the new technologies that are going to be coming up in the future. So yeah, definitely see myself long-term working in manufacturing.
So last question as we part ways today. So the question for all three of you is, give one last tip to the students, something you wish you would have known as a high school, maybe even a middle school student, something you wish you would have known prior to going down the path you have, and give us that last pearl of wisdom as we leave today. Kendra, you're unmuted, so you go first.
All right, no pressure, right? So I kind of mentioned it before. Don't be afraid to try something new and figure out something, give something a try. If you're doing it in high school and middle school, you're not committing to it for the rest of your life at that point. Taking that trip or that site visit to go check out a plant, or there might be an opportunity that's presented to you, always say yes to it, because you never know. On one end, you might hate it, but at least you figured that out and got it out of the way and make yourself a little bit easier. But you also might discover something that you really love. I know Amber mentioned that her family was involved, and that's kind of how she got into it. Not everyone always has that chance. So make sure you're taking the chances to explore things and kind of learn about certain things. Don't just read it in a book and a career thing and say, I don't know, that's not really for me. I don't really know what it is. So turn the page, actually do a little research and figure out what it is in the current state.
So since we started in alphabetical order, we'll finish in reverse alphabetical, which means Genna, you're up next.
I completely agree with Kendra, but I would also say ask questions. No matter what you're doing, ask questions. If you don't understand something, like they always say, there's no stupid question. You would feel better to fully understand something than to feel like, man, I really wish I would have asked that. So always ask questions.
And last but certainly not least, Amber, bring us home.
So I would say just be open to trying new things, kind of like Kendra said, and definitely don't be afraid. So I just want to give a quick little story. It was my junior year of college, and I at this point was pretty shy and really shy about talking to my professors because they were new professors. And my one professor said, if anybody would like to join a research group with me, please see me after class. And this is something that I would have never done before this. And I was like, you know what? I have to try it. I have to face my fears and do it. So I went up to him after class and asked to be in the research group. He accepted me into the research group. And from there, I went on to present in front of about 250 people. I became somewhat of a published author for doing a research paper. I found my job here at SMS. So just by facing my fears and trying something new, I turned out where I am today. So I would definitely just don't be afraid.
Awesome story. Well, thank you so much, Genna, Kendra, Amber. We really appreciate all your insights today. If you want to learn more about their backstories, about their education, about just other tips they have and other things they like to do outside of work, etc. We have bios created for each of our 3 panelists today, but also all of the rest of the navigators. You can see those at explorenewmfg.org. If you go to explorenewmfg.org and then go to the navigators page, you'll see photos of all of our navigators, but also get to see some general bio information about each of them. Over the course of the rest of this calendar year, all of our navigators will be continuing to engage with us in activities and programs with students and teachers throughout the region. So they don't know what they are yet, because we don't know what they are yet, but stay tuned for announcements on our website and via our email newsletters and our blogs, and as well as our social media in regards to other appearances and engagements by our navigators. But we're really hoping too, even as we get into the fall, that we can start to do some company tours again. So maybe one of these talented young ladies will be our tour guide for a future visit or something along that line. So, but again, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for all your insights you shared with the students and all of the educators today. And have an awesome day. And thanks again so much.